All right, here we are.
All right. Good afternoon. We'll give it a minute for attendees to just log in, join up to the webinar here. But yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us during this ever changing times that we are living in here. And before we go any further, we just want to take the time to thank those of you who are doing your part to learn and be socially responsible with your business decisions, as well as also thank those of you. And I know there are some on this call today who, even though you're doing your part to distance yourselves and your staff as much as you can, you are in an industry where you're not really able to do that completely, and you're exposed more than the rest of us are for the sake of helping people at this time. So thank you for what you're doing. And and finally, I wanted to also recognize those who are in industries that are being impacted by all the stuff going on now, and you find yourselves needing to find ways to run a lean ship in order for your business to survive. And I guess I just want you all to know that we understand that struggle, and we encourage you to fight through this as best you can. And we're all in this together, and we all need each other. So hopefully today will help. Today we changed our topic, as many of you know, to focus on planning a work from home strategy. And so hopefully, we're here to share some of our experiences and spend time answering your questions. Joe has prepared some great information, but I also think that this is a great topic to answer questions that are on your mind as well. So please submit your questions throughout this presentation, and I'll do my best to sort through them and get them answered. I'm hoping that we actually have maybe some extra time today on Q&A, so we can get to some of your questions. But all right, let's get started. So real quick, for those that are new to us, though, my name is Jordan Darling, your color commentator and facilitator. I'm a certified information system security professional, vice president of Top Dog PC and CEO of High Tech Secure. We're here with Joel Malmberg, as always, your main presenter. Joe is the owner and president of Top Dog PC, the CTO of High Tech Secure, and holder of SANS GIAC Security Essentials certification and many others. He knows his stuff. Those of you that know him know that already. Joe and I have been small business owners since 2004, so we can empathize with many of you, and we also know how essential all of your businesses are, regardless if you made it on some list somewhere. Your business is essential to the economy and to you and your family and those around you. So we really hope this is informative and valuable to you. So Joe, take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna unlike our other ones that we did here on security the past couple months, this one's going to be a little bit more informal. And I want to first of all everyone, thanks for attending right now. But I wanted to point to one person who's on the call here today. It's a member of my peer group. His name is Brandon Gordon. And Brandon, I actually just unmuted you if you want to talk. But Brandon owns a IT services company very similar to ours in Nebraska, and he actually put on a presentation just like this last week for his partners, and he was gracious enough to give me his slide deck, which I borrowed heavily from for this. So, Brandon, thanks for that.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Seriously. Yeah, I'm interested to see how many of my talking points came or made it to the spreadsheet or to the PowerPoint as well. There.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it so you can keep talking if you got anything that you want to chime in there. All right. So what I really want to cover here today is obviously a lot of our customers are already working from home, right? You're working from home right now, or in the past you have worked from home. So maybe this is a little late, but over the course of the past couple weeks here, we've really had an awful lot of of help desk calls coming in. So but I wanted to try to get as ahead of this as I could. So what I really want to do is get information about working remotely out to as many people as quickly as possible. I want to just give a quick update about us, about Top Dog PC and what we're doing here. I sent some of that information out already, but I just want to make sure everybody gets that. And really want to make sure that all of our partners can effectively work from home. And there are a lot of great tools available to let you do that. A lot of people already have them implemented, but I want to make sure everyone understands what they all are. And if you don't have them, allow us to get them implemented for you. So what are we doing? We're an essential service. Fortunately, we're able to do this from home. So I sent our staff home a couple weeks ago. Everybody's working from home. We're very effective whether we are at home or not, or in the office. I'm actually in the office today. Somebody has to pick up checks and collect incoming receivables, packages, that type of thing. So I stop in every once in a while. But and we've got this voice over IP cloud phone system that has just enabled every single one of our staff to be wherever they are as long as they have a good internet connection. You've been calling us. We can take calls from wherever we live. We can transfer calls. It works great. All of our tool sets are based, they're cloud-based, whether that's in somebody else's server or on ours at one of our co-location facilities. And as I said, I'm coming into the office on occasion. So just real quickly on that. And we are, as far as on-sites go, we've transitioned to emergency only for on-sites. Everything's really a case by case after that. So, obviously we're really trying to respect this whole social distancing order that's in place the best that we can and keep our staff and everybody else as safe as possible. So over the course of the past week, like I said, we've taken a lot of phone calls over the course of last week for getting people set up remotely from home. And there are a lot of things that have revealed themselves that are a little different from when we set somebody up to connect from home. You maybe got 2 or 3 people working from home. So then when you have 25 people working from home, things are a little different. So I want to touch on some of those things. So first of all, VPN, remote access. I think most of the people that work with us, we've got some kind of a firewall in place. It's usually a FortiGate device that has a built-in VPN. VPN, you've heard the term before, virtual private network. It allows you to have a secure tunnel from your workstation to your work network over the internet. And again, like I said before, this works great in with 2 or 3 users. We've been seeing that some internet connections, business office internet connections, are struggling to contain that load. Usually a decent internet connection for 1 to 3 users. It works great for 1 to 3 users. Once you start kind of getting up to 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, it can really affect the quality of that connection. So, I know there are a lot of different ISPs right now that are able to, just with a phone call, bump up your internet speed. So that's an option. Another thing I should mention as well is, in addition to using the FortiClient with the FortiGate, if we don't have something like that, LogMeIn is an option. It gives you, I think that they're doing it for free for right now. Brandon, do you remember what the deal is with LogMeIn for the free, who it's free for?
I believe it is the essential businesses, which would be education and medical, I believe, and maybe nonprofits.
Okay.
The one thing on that is if you have that free account, it's sort of like it's not managed in that you can control access for certain users to certain machines. Basically, they would be a one-to-one sort of thing, or whoever logs in has access to all the machines.
Yeah, so you're installing that on a workstation at your office, and you're giving, so we're installing it on John's computer at the office. We're giving John a login to LogMeIn, and he logs in, and he's gonna be able to get to John's computer, right?
Exactly, very one-to-one on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mentioned before, more users equals slower access. And one of the big things about that, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more here in a moment. So again, with remote desktop, with VPNs and remote desktop, when you're connecting over a VPN, some users, when they connect over a VPN, they're just connecting their computer to that they have. Maybe they took their laptop out of the office, they took it home, they plugged it into they're on their home network, and they connected the VPN. And now they want to just use the resources that were on the network as if they were local to at the office. It works well in some situations. It doesn't work well in some other situations. So specific situations where it works pretty well. If you're just accessing office documents, works great. If you're accessing things like, I touch on this a little bit later as well, but if you're accessing things like CAD files, or if you're like an Adobe user, that type of thing, or really popular one is QuickBooks, you're probably going to have some issues. So doing a remote desktop session instead is going to be a much better experience for those users. So a remote desktop session is you connect to the VPN, and then you're actually using that to hop onto a computer at the office, and all you're really doing then is sending an image of that machine back and forth to your computer at your house. But it's really fast, uses a lot less bandwidth, and it works well. One other thing, so we're talking about the office internet connections. Some of them are struggling under the load. We found, and this is something that Brandon revealed as well on his, is that home internet speed, recommending at least 25 megs down for 2 people who are working, and that's pretty common, right? We've also found there are kids at home who are sharing that connection, streaming Netflix or whatever it is that they're doing online, if it's schooling. I know in Minnesota that the schooling is pretty limited right now, but starting next month, that's probably going to be picking up, and that's all online. Everyone's going to be using your internet connection. Also, worth mentioning, there is at Comcast, and at Comcast, I know they had a 1 terabyte per month data cap, so you could download up to 1 terabyte per month using their service. They've lifted that cap for the duration of the pandemic, so you can use as much bandwidth as you possibly can. You can have downloads going all month long, and it's not going to cost anything extra. But we have found that hotspot service has been a little spotty. Sometimes it's okay, but just cell phones overall have been a little challenging to. I think that network is a little stressed too. So just keep that in mind. That might not be a long-term solution, and we'll get into a little bit later, but wired is pretty much always better. Other important thing to keep in mind is, just let's talk security considerations. First of all, a lot of people didn't have a real work at home policy. We're finding that when this hit. So it's not hard to create one. I recommend building one, writing one up, and really the point of the policy should be to protect the employer and the employee rights, but it needs to reflect the capabilities of what you're able to do, of the types of things that you're allowing your staff to do, the types of things that they're able to do with the tech that you have on hand. So, like for us, we describe, we've got this tool set, you're able to connect to it remotely. We're expecting that you're using a Top Dog PC owned computer, and if not, then it needs to meet these criteria, and we're going to check that it does. Also, just make sure that policy is easy to understand, clear and concise. It doesn't have to be multiple pages long, and then just get it signed by everybody so that they understand, and clearly communicate what that policy means, and what the intent of it is. And again, like I mentioned, so if you have users connecting from home, are they using their home computers? If they're connecting from home using their home computers and connecting to the VPN, one of the issues that I talked about is with this whole bandwidth thing that at the office. Typically, when we set up a VPN for a customer, we turn off what is called split tunneling. And this is a little techie, but hopefully I can explain it. Essentially, when we set up a VPN and we turn off split tunneling. It means that all traffic that, once you get connected to that VPN, all traffic that's going out to the internet and coming back out to you, all traffic, no matter what it is, once you're connected to that VPN, if you're looking at YouTube in the background while you're downloading files from your company's server, all that traffic is actually going out through your company's internet connection and then coming back through yours. So when we do that and we have 30 people connected, suddenly there's 30 people sucking all that bandwidth at the business internet connection to do things, to do all of their internet activity from that device. Split tunneling, what that does is it just targets, it only uses the data at the business on the business's internet connection when you're accessing resources that are on the business network. So for example, if I wanted to download a Word file from my office while connected to the VPN, if I'm using split tunneling, it's going to use my office internet connection and my home internet connection. But if I want to view YouTube in another window, it's just going to use my home internet connection to do that, and then it's not going to saturate my work one. That is a security concern because suddenly your machine is connected to 2 different networks, and it can act as a tunnel that something malicious could come in through. So we don't recommend doing that, but there are some instances right now where people have had to just make that decision that they're gonna use split tunneling for now just because they don't have the bandwidth. But I don't think that's a good long-term solution. It's not something I recommend, but it's something I thought was worth mentioning. The other part of this then is staff-owned computers. I know it's really hard to get computers right now, laptops especially. And speaking of that, I actually managed to get my hands on some. We have about 5 laptops right now. So if you want to get a business class workstation or business class laptop, we have Dell Ultrabooks available right now. And you don't want to get charged an arm and a leg because they're going for ridiculous prices on Amazon and eBay right now. We can get them to you. Let me know. But if you've got staff-owned computers, it's important to make sure that if they're connecting to the VPN, that those have all of the right protections in place. So, are they getting patched? Do they have antivirus installed? If this is going to be that person's new computer, maybe it makes sense for us to put an agent on it. So, again, let us know. If we put an agent on it, all those policies that we set up for your organization are going to apply to that machine.
Hey, Joe,
yes.
One thing on that split tunneling,
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing to think about is if your office has a 25.5 internet connection, don't forget that a lot of that traffic's going across the 5 megabit side because
Yes.
it's uploading from the office.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
slower
Brandon,
connection even still.
So Brandon's talking about if you have a 25 meg circuit from Comcast, and I think most people here have they're starting at 50 at least. It's not symmetric. You get 50 megabits down and you get 10 megabits up. So they can download from you at 50 megabits, but they can only push back to you at 10. And that really can make a big difference. So that's where that's where you can really see these connections start to struggle. But we even have customers with gigabit circuits that have 30 plus people connecting in, and it's struggling under the load too. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, we have a
Yes.
question here.
Yeah.
It's regarding the work from home policy.
Mhm.
Curious if they currently don't have a work from home policy, if
Mhm.
we have resources to kind of help them put that together. And
we can give them some guidance based on what we did for ours. It's short and sweet. I'm not a lawyer, but the policy is pretty simple, and it essentially says that a couple of things I touched on, about making sure that whatever machine that you're connecting from is approved by us, and that you're going to communicate and over communicate, making sure that we've got we have something in there about you're working, we're not, we understand that there are kids at home, but you're working, you're not you're not just at home for the weekend, those types of things. But yeah, we can I think that maybe if anyone has any questions, we can give them what we did, and that might be a good jumping off point.
Yeah, and I'll also add that our friends over at Compliancy Group have a work from home policy that they can share. They
Oh,
also have a
okay.
they also have a BYOD policy template too. So
Okay.
um, so yeah, we have resources that we can share.
Great. Great. All right, I'm going to move on here. So also just in the security piece here, this is the time that the bad guys, they really, we're totally distracted with this, and they're coming after the low-hanging fruit. There are a lot of phishing attacks out there right now that are using the coronavirus or COVID as a lead-in to their attacks. So it's really important that your staff are aware and that they're looking for things. Here's an example of one I found on TrustWave's site. This is from last month, but you know, it looks pretty decent, looks pretty legit. But you can see that this link here that looks like it's going to the CDC is going to another site. If you click on that, it takes you to a page where it's trying to collect your Office 365 credentials. So those types of things are always happen whenever something big hits the news. No matter what it is, they use that trying to get people to click. The other part of this too is that, you know, like I said, we've got people working from home right now. This is a headline from yesterday. There's probably, I'm speculating here, but you know, we did our first presentation a couple months ago, and it was on ransomware. My suspicion is that we're going to see the number of ransomware attacks drop because of the fact that people will probably have a little bit more challenging time collecting on that. But I think that what we'll probably see is an increase in the types of attack that are trying to collect information, where they sit back, wait, and try to get as much as they can, and they're going to have it when they're going to know a lot about the places that they've gotten into, and they're going to know when the right time is to strike. So this isn't a time to let our guard down. You know, the thing I mentioned was split tunneling. There are some security concessions people are making right now, but it shouldn't be a long-term thing. We really need to just keep that top of mind. All right, so moving on. So email, let's talk email. We have a handful of customers, handful of partners that have on-premises email. Exchange 2010 is really what we are seeing at a few places, which, you know, in most of those cases, it's a server upgrade that still needs to happen. But we've had some issues just specifically with some of the newer email clients, the newer releases. We've got fixes in place for those, but we've had some issues with newer phones, that type of thing. So just a heads up there that's something that we might struggle with if you're running an older server. Office 365 seems to be doing pretty well. They've fortunately for them, the way that they serve their email really hasn't changed, whether you're collecting it at the office or you're collecting it at home. So one thing I should point out, if you have the Office 365 business suite that includes the applications, that lets you install it on up to 5 devices per user. So if you have people working from home and they do need Office installed on their home computer, you don't necessarily have to buy it if you've got 365. This is a really great example of where that can pay off, having that license. Again, just security considerations, you know, on personal devices, you know, this is really up. This is again your policy. What do you want your staff to be able to have? What of your information, your company's information, do you want your staff to be able to have on their device? You know, if you're not a covered industry like healthcare, that's a decision you're going to have to make on your own. If you are, then you know, there are regulatory bodies that are going to make that decision for you. So let's see here. You know, I think let's see here. We'll skip ahead to the next one. All right, so I talked briefly about different applications, the way that they're working. This is a slide that I pretty much stole straight up from Brandon. Access to QuickBooks Desktop and Peachtree, you are going to need remote desktop. That's really the only way you can run that. You can run it using remote desktop, or as we did for one person today. There's only one person in the office who uses QuickBooks, so we actually copied the file back to their laptop, which is what they use, and we're making sure that we've got something set up to back up their QuickBooks file offsite, because the worst thing in the world would be if that machine got hit with a ransomware infection and then all of their QuickBooks data was gone. QuickBooks Online it works well. We use it. There are some features that it is missing from versus the desktop product, and I don't know what those are, but I have a resource who can tell you what they all are. Our accountant is a QuickBooks or Intuit QuickBooks Diamond online. He has that title. I wish I knew exactly what it was. Anyway, it has near feature parity with the desktop product. We've been using it for a while. It works really well. It works great over the internet. It does cost more per year than the desktop version does. And if you're using the desktop version, it does look different. So another one is, all right, checks are coming in. We need to scan them. Unless you change where your checks are coming to, you're probably going to have to come into the office anyway to scan them in. But if you have something where you're having somebody scan them from home, you're going to have to move that hardware to their home computer, and you're probably going to have them contact the bank. With our bank, we have to let them know where we're connecting from, and they have to do a couple things on the device that we're hooking up the scanner to authorize it to be able to be used with the check scanning software. So something worth keeping in mind if you're going to move that role home. Phones is a really big one. Like I said, I feel very fortunate that we have a cloud-based phone system. There are a lot of different ways to handle this. If you are having to send everybody home and you don't have a regular phone system, you can contact your phone provider. So, Comcast, CenturyLink, whoever is providing your dial tone, and ask them to forward the number to another one. As Brandon brought up in his, he said, if you forward this to a cell phone, who's that lucky person who's going to get all of those calls? So do you want to do it that way? If you have a phone system of some kind, many of them will allow you to forward from a desk phone to an external phone. So if you don't have a VoIP phone system, but maybe you have an older one on site, it's possible it will let you forward calls out from that to another one, which will let that inbound call flow kind of continue to distribute out. You'll want to look at that and think about how you want call flow to continue during this time when people are going to be working from home. If you have go ahead.
Joe, I just wanted to comment too, just because you brought up forwarding the cell phone, that probably many people know that cell phone towers have been bombarded, and so that's not really a reliable thing to do anyway.
No, it's not. It's not. We've been, I have a little bit on it in a later slide, but our customers that we're calling that are asking us to call them on their cell phone, it's not out of the question for us to have to call them about between like 8 to 10 times before we get through. We'll just get a rapid busy signal, and it doesn't really seem to be any single carrier that we've seen it on. I know I've seen it on AT&T. I think maybe a little bit more than some of the other ones. Brandon was seeing it a little bit more at Verizon, so maybe it depends where you are. But the system is definitely a little bit more overloaded. The capacity planning, I think people haven't been using their cell phones to actually talk into for many years now. They've just been using them as little computers. So the capacity for voice is not quite where it needs to be for that to be.
Forwarding to cell phone was always our go-to answer for disaster planning for cell phones, and evidently it was everybody else's too.
Yeah. So cloud VoIP, it makes it really easy. For us, you can take a phone off your desk and take it home if you want to, but we've just got soft phones. We've got an application loaded up on our computers at our homes, on our laptops or our desktops that we took home. You can also have it up on, you can put it on your cell phone and load it up there and make phone calls through your phone system on your cell phone. It works really well. And if that's something that, we're going to be in this situation for a little while, that's something we can help migrate to. It doesn't, spinning up a phone system for us takes very little time. We can spin up a phone system within a day. The only thing that takes any time is actually porting the numbers, but we can get temporary numbers and forward primary numbers, your main number to this temporary number, so that phone system can come online in the meantime. So that's something we can act on quickly.
And hey, Joe, I'll throw this out there since this is the topic we're on. Answer it if you can here. We got a question of how do we connect 3CX desk phones from someone's house? 3CX is the phone system we.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do that. If you have a desk phone and you need to connect it from someone's house, and it depends where it's being hosted. We have a couple places that we're hosting them right now. We've moved the majority of our partners over to Amazon. If we're on Amazon, and you want to use the desk phone, there's an application you run on the workstation on their laptop or desktop. It runs on a computer at their house that basically the phone talks to that, and then it does all of the processing to talk to the opens all the appropriate ports and connects to the 3CX server to terminate that connection. And you can run that on a computer. You can also, what we've done for our customers that have these in their office, we just put that runs on a little Raspberry Pi, which is, it's just a tiny computer. It works really well. So there's two different ways to do that. So with, like I mentioned, we're getting lots of busy signal on especially AT&T. Another thing to consider, if you've got people calling from their cell phones, they're going to be exposing their cell phone number, and is that okay? As Jordan mentioned, cell phone providers are kind of overloaded right now. We've seen the most consistent experience really with everything right now is to try to get wired. And this is a piece of advice from Brandon again as well. Just keeping your desk phone within 25 to 50 feet of router. I'm assuming that I think that guidance is mainly because you're probably not going to have a patch cord a whole lot longer than that you're going to run around your house. Was that
exactly? Oh yeah,
okay.
We stock 25 and 50 feet patch cables. That's why.
Okay, got it. So,
what about power, Joe? Though, where's the power coming from?
Oh yeah. Yep, that's the other piece. Thanks for bringing that up. So if you have a desk phone, desk phones are getting power right now through the switch that they're plugged into. If you don't have an external power adapter and you do want to take phones home, let us know. We can get you some. We'll drop ship them to the location that needs them. So yeah, they'll have to be physically plugged into the wall in order to get that, or you have to use a PoE injector or something like that. But yeah, they don't get power on their own otherwise. And again, if this is going on for a little while, it might be worth looking at putting something in place for the duration of this, or potentially replacing what you have with a voice over IP phone system. The beauty of that is that we can do most of the setup on that without really having to go anywhere, which is kind of the intent right now. So again, following some of the things that Brandon had put together as well, we've got let's talk about some of the different file types that people use. Like I said before, Word, Excel, those types of things, your general office files, they work well. You can do all those office applications over a VPN. If you are somebody who uses Adobe the Creative Suite, the VPN can work. It's not an awesome experience to do a remote desktop in, but it's possible that that might be the only option. The other one is through CenterStack, through our cloud drive. We've had a lot of customers using that already up to this point for Adobe. The big issue there is really just the file sizes. CAD, our customers who are using CAD, they're used to it. They've had to use VPN for a really long time. Remote desktop to CAD works okay, but the majority of the people who are working with CAD files, we're just seeing them, they're dealing with it. They're hitting copy, paste, they're pasting the files back to their local machine, and they are working on them there. Line of business software, everybody's got different line of business software. Depending on what it is, chances are with the majority of the line of business software that people are running, that they're running internally, that has like a server at their office, we're going to probably be doing remote desktop. You're going to do a VPN plus remote desktop. If you don't have that capability, that's where something like LogMeIn comes into play. The problem again there is very similar to QuickBooks, where it's just, it might work, but your experience is just going to be terrible. So doing it over a remote desktop, it's going to feel much more like you're in the office. So again, external conferencing. I want to thank, this is something I thought was kind of neat. So we're using Zoom right now, obviously. I think Zoom works great. It's probably the easiest of the webinar and screen sharing web conferencing apps I've used. They have a free version. I think that the limitation is that you can do it for no longer than like 60 minutes or something like that. I'm really impressed that they've been able to maintain the capacity, because I think there's a million people, you know, they've had a whole lot more people using it. It's more than a million people. They've had a whole lot more meetings that they've been hosting. I'll be interested to see if they release some of those statistics. Microsoft Teams, we use Microsoft Teams. We use it internally, and I'll touch on that here in a little bit. It does have a conferencing capability. It's a little, I think it's a little harder for people to get in on that than it's just the, you know, you could start that meeting and, you know, maybe 10 minutes in, you're going to start seeing people come in, or everyone will be there. It just seems like it's a little bit more challenging for users to get into it. Zoom, you go to the website, you click on the meeting invite, and everyone that's here, you saw how quickly and easily you were able to get in. The key is, right, make it as easy as possible for clients. And this is something that Brandon brought up. He said, you know, look to Instagram, look to your Instagram stars here. I've done a little.
You're doing great, Bill. You're doing great.
I've done some strategic webcam positioning here, so it's close to my presentation. So it looks like I'm trying to make it look like I'm looking at you instead of looking over here.
You're Instagram famous.
Okay, I'm Instagram famous. Yeah, think about that. You know what? You know, we're social creatures. We're socially isolated. Let's you know, make it look like we're having some one-on-one conversation here during this time.
Hey, Joe,
yeah.
I'd like to also add it on this slide to our healthcare folks. That Zoom has an option that is like a package that you can buy that's already kind of HIPAA compliant. Some of the other popular conferencing options can be HIPAA compliant, but there's like configurations you kind of have to do to meet those requirements.
Yeah, and actually I should mention that I can get the exact text, but they have lifted some of that during the duration of this, that you can use non-HIPAA compliant video streaming services.
There's a asterisk. There's some asterisks there, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So internal conferencing, like I mentioned, we're using Microsoft Teams. So if you are currently, like the majority of our partners, using Office 365 for email, adding Teams, if you're only doing email, adding Teams is going to cost you about $1 more per month per user. It works really well, and it's been key for us, and I'll go into exactly how we're using it here after this. Another option is Slack. We used Slack for years. The only reason we switched from Slack to 365 is that we were already paying for 365, so there's no reason for us to pay for Slack. Zoom, I've seen people getting creative with Zoom. They just have everybody who's working from home, they have a Zoom meeting going on, and they have it muted, and they have cameras on everybody, so they're like, you know, when you're trying to get a hold of somebody, you can see, yeah, they're at their desk, or no, they're not at their desk. Lisa told a story about someone who was in a Zoom meeting, and they didn't realize that their camera was on, and they went and sat down in the bathroom. So pay attention to when you have those, where you have your camera pointed. Other considerations, security controls. You know, when this is like talking about Zoom and with Slack. You know, when you set up Slack and Teams, when you set up Slack and Teams, there are different security controls you can set on different channels. And if you don't know what the channels are, I actually have a screenshot of Teams here in the next slide, so we'll look at that briefly. Same thing with Zoom. One thing I like about Zoom is Jordan and I can switch the presenter host role pretty quickly here, and he can moderate as well. So Just touching on Teams here. Teams is cool. It works, so does Slack does this as well. It works on your desktop or on a phone. This is not the greatest screenshot in the world, but if you look in the background here, really when you set up a Teams site, you get a general channel, and then you can build additional channels on it. These channels they're rooms, I guess. They're made for, you're supposed to kind of stay on topic in those. So, we have a general channel because everyone has that, but we also have a help desk channel. We have an internal tech channel. We have a orders channel. It really depends on what the topic is. And then you can lock those down if there are certain things. If you wanted a management channel, which is something that a lot of our customers have asked for, you just create a channel that's private, and you have only those people that you want in that channel on it. You can see here that you can, in a channel, you can hit the video button and it starts a meeting in that channel, and anybody that's in that channel can join. And they just hit the join button, and suddenly their audio video is on, and everyone's talking. Let's talk about keeping your workstation area clean. Computers are germ magnets. So I just kind of go over a couple of hygiene things for your keyboard and your other devices. First of all, if you're going to clean any of these things, we recommend you turn it off, unplug it. Laptops, we don't recommend using like paper towels and Windex on these things. I mean, some people do that, but it can be harsh. It can scratch the screen. Microfiber cloths with just soap and warm water, or rubbing alcohol. I have I think a mix of I'm gonna get it backwards, I think, but I think it's 30% alcohol, 70% water. That works really well to clean a screen off. Same thing with the laptop or with the keyboard. The thing I don't have listed here is literally like picking it up, turning it upside down over a garbage can and shaking it out. You'll be disgusted by the number of things that come out of there, depending on how old your workstation is. You can clean that off with the keyboards are a little challenging because of all the moving parts on them. But again, alcohol swabs, just Q-tip. If you have like a actual like they make little things for cleaning keyboards that for cleaning electronic devices that aren't like cotton swabs. They have like a little foam tip on them. They work really well for cleaning them off. There's also this goop you can buy on Amazon that like you push into the keyboard and you pull it out, and it collects everything that's between the keys. It does a pretty good job. There's some alcohol in there as well to kill germs on your keyboard. If your mice, unplug it. Again, alcohol swab, warm water. I've actually used paper towels on the bottom of my mouse, and that works fine. And same on the top. I'm less concerned about scratching that. Smartphone, take it off, shut it off. There have been a bunch of articles about cleaning your smartphone, but turn it off, remove the case, clean the case, use rubbing alcohol, cotton swab, clean that off.
I would add too, just kind of a tip, like you just need stuff to be damp. Like you don't have to have it dripping with water or whatever. Just a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, my recommendation: cleaning the screen, you can spray the screen. I would, if you're cleaning the other stuff, spray the cloth that you're cleaning it with. Don't spray your keyboard with rubbing alcohol. So then, kind of getting toward the end here, but this is just another piece that for us, we're changing the way that we work. We lost that office room chatter where a lot of really good efficiencies and ideas tend to reveal themselves, where you're overhearing one of your coworkers talk to another, and so we have to try to supplement and replace that. Over communication during this time is really important, and that's why I think solutions like Teams are extremely helpful in a time like this. So we're doing every day we do a huddle at 8:30. That's one of our things that we've done every day, and I stole this from Brandon, but they're doing a second one now too. They do two a day. We're doing one at 8:30, and we're doing another one at 2 o'clock. And we're going through the things that we go through every morning. It's, you know, who's the first person in the call queue today? What sorts of issues are you experiencing? Is there anything you're struggling with? What are you guys working on today? That type of thing. And then also just getting that message out like, hey, here's something I was working on last night that's going to affect everybody. I want you all to understand what it is. Or, hey, you know what, Lisa might get on and say, we've been getting a lot of calls about this. And someone will chime in and say, all right, well, here's the fix, everybody, so that, you know, you are not all struggling with this. And then, you know, on top of that, on top of like just getting work done, you know, mental health is important for everybody. You know, find out what everyone's having for lunch today. It's a great, it's a great way to get people to quit thinking about work for a second and you know, maybe have a little bit of that water cooler chatter. So
yeah, I've felt like you know, those have gone a little bit over than what we normally keep them to 15 minutes. Since all of this, they've been going a little over, and I've just found that like that's kind of okay. It's nice to, with all the business stuff that you can take care of on those calls. It's just kind of nice to have that personal connection. You know, whatever that is, just take a extra 5 minutes on those calls to just smile, talk with each other, check in on, like you said, mental health and things. But that's I think that's important.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was the last slide on this. You know, I really just wanted to make sure that people understood that that, you know, there are some of these things that we're seeing, some of those infrastructure limitations that might be revealing themselves with everybody connecting, and the fact that we are, if I didn't stress it or underline it earlier, we are, the past 2 weeks have been the absolute highest call and ticket volume we've ever experienced in the history of our company. And it's, you know, we are trying to get to everybody as quickly as possible. And there may be some things that we receive right now that are just, we're going to have to tell you that, yes, we're going to get to this, but it might take a little bit longer than it normally does, because we're placing certain things in higher priority. You know, we want it, our goal right now is to get people to work, and get people back to work. And if there's something that's impeding that, we're going to focus on that type of thing first. So thank you everybody for your patience, who maybe has had to deal with things taking a little bit longer than normal. Are there any questions?
So we do have one question here, but I also just wanted to make sure we, you know, shoot the breeze for a little bit to let people think of any questions that they have. Ask anything you want, everyone. Just anything you need, anything that's on your mind, anything you're dealing with personally through this. Feel free to ask. The one question that we have right now is, how can I make sure that my staff are taking proper precautions at home? Security precautions, I believe.
Well, there's a couple ways. Obviously, you can ask them. You can say, here's the policy, right? And that's part of it. But how do they prove it? You know, with the if you're using a Fortinet device, if they're connecting in using that, there is a feature that we can enable that will make sure that before they can connect, their machine meets the requirements of your network. And some of those requirements could be, let's make sure antivirus is on and that it's updated. Let's make sure that the machine is patched. Those are two things. The other part of this, like I suggested, if this is going to be, if they're connecting from home and they're using a work-owned computer, or they're not using a work-owned computer, and they're going to be using that machine for a while, it might make sense for us to put an agent on it so that we can make sure that the policies that we've applied for your organization are applying to that machine as well.
Yeah, and I would probably add too, kind of from the information security side, that there is our friends over at Security Studio have an information, you know, we do information security assessments as part of our high-tech secure side, and but Security Studio has a free assessment for personal use called S2Me, and I can send you guys the link for that. But that's just a personal one anyone can take, and it gives you just kind of a personal information security assessment. and it can be pretty eye-opening. I went through one with my uncle the other day who runs a home-based business, and you know, lots of just little cyber security hygiene tips that he never really thought of kind of came out of it, and he's starting to do things a little differently. But they can do that. There's also they have a kind of a company one called S2 Team, and it's where the company can actually kind of manage it. They can have people take their personal information security assessment, and they can follow it, track it. It's anonymous, but they can kind of see and share with the company like where everyone is lines up with their personal information security score and things like that. It typically costs money. I think right now that's free for at least 90 days. They're making it free. So like during this time, you can do that. I think there'll be a cost if you wanted to continue using it after 90 days. But I think those are great things just for people to understand what they're, you know, for sure. If you haven't done one, just personally go to S2Me and just see where you line up. You know, it's good to know.
Great. And that was, it's S2me.com.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or?
We don't have anything. I did want to comment though, because I read an article the other day, and it brought up, I don't know if you touched on it. I was kind of paying attention to some other things.
Okay.
Well, trying to wrangle some questions.
Yeah.
But the idea of printing at home, and kind of the information security risk that comes with that, because that's maybe, you know, they might have some of those other precautions in place, but you don't always know what they're printing and if they're following proper shredding procedures and things like that at home.
Yep. Yep. That's important. And actually, you know what, that does raise one other thing too. That we, you know, when we set people up on a VPN without split tunneling, and somebody is working from home and they have a network printer, that network printer is not going to work. We have to actually get it plugged into their machine in order to get it to work. So that's something we've run into. It hasn't happened a lot, but just something worth pointing out.
You know, Joe, out of all of our users that we've moved to work at home, we've only had one person that has asked to bring her printer home out of all that. And I think she did bring the entire printer home.
Oh, okay.
But that's only one. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but only one cared.
Yeah, you know, I guess one of the, right now, I think for the majority of our partners that we're working with, they have somebody in the office who's still there. They have some sort of skeleton crew there. And when people are printing, they might even be just still printing to the office because that's maybe where it needs to be. Or maybe people are not printing as much. But yeah, we haven't had a lot of how do I print from home questions.
We've had some other issues where they had a full 23-inch monitor at the office, or even 2, and when they get home, they have a 14-inch laptop. So we're trying to figure out if they want to bring the monitors home, or in a couple of cases, they brought their entire desktop, the full setup home.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point.
Thing, you know?
That's a really good point. That's something I probably should have mentioned. We are having a bunch of customers that are doing that. They're taking all their workstations home. They're telling people, we don't have laptops, we can't get laptops, bring your workstation home. And that is an option. But again, you need to keep in mind all those things that I brought up about the different applications and what it means to use those applications. How are you using them now? Are you accessing them directly from your desktop? And are they going to perform well over a VPN? If not, you're going to have a computer at the office that your people can, that you can log back into to run that application. And when I say a computer, you know, a desktop computer will work for one person to connect to run an application on. A desktop computer will not work for 2 people to do at the same time. So it's just a Windows licensing thing. So.
All right. The one thing I was thinking I would bring up too, was a very interesting thing I came across. CompTIA has a kind of a cybersecurity tips for working at home, just kind of like a do's and don'ts list. I think if you Google CompTIA cybersecurity tips for working at home, you'll probably find this, but it's kind of interesting. I thought since we have some time, I'll kind of read some of these. Because this is what you got to kind of think about when you're at home. So make sure you're using a end-to-end encryption, VPN. We already talked about that. Security filtering. Don't use a computer that's in an accessible place in the house where others may see what is on the screen. I think that's important because now when you're working from home, you got to make sure that you're not working in a public place. Try to find an office area or just some more secluded area. That's probably a good tip just for general working from home, separating work from your home life, but also it has security implications. And make sure you're not sharing that computer. It's not a computer that your kids are going to be using and you're doing business on as well.
Yeah. I'll just piggyback off of that. If you're using something like Teams or Zoom, you have the ability to hide what's behind you. There's the thing that will fuzz out what's behind you. The people in your office don't need to see what's going on behind you. I haven't done that. I have chosen a virtual background in the past, and it looks really silly. You can pick whatever wallpaper you want, but just something worth considering there too. If your spouse is working from home, your coworkers don't need to see what they're working on.
Yeah. Also, like we just said about printing, don't print documents unless you can immediately secure them from unauthorized viewers. Don't access
like your kids.
Like your kids. And make sure you have a shredder. Don't throw away sensitive material when you're at home. Companies might have a little less control over that, but so it sometimes comes down to making sure you're communicating that. Make sure you have a policy.
Yep.
But you make sure they have something to shred documents with. Don't have business phone calls to discuss confidential information where anyone can hear. That's important, especially when you're working in a field where there's lots of confidential information, like medical field or something. Don't fall for email scams, as we discussed, and log off of your computer when you walk away, which you might be a little more relaxed.
Yeah, lock your computer when you go away from it. Part of that is for security. Part of that is that, especially if you're at home with kids, I learned the lesson the hard way when I was working on a machine that I had to take home years ago, and my now 8-year-old, who was I think about 2 at the time, came in and hit a button and canceled everything that was going on. So just having that thing locked so that your kids don't come sit down and start playing Fortnite over the top of everything you're trying to do. It's important.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, there hasn't been. I'm just going to check one last time. There hasn't been any other questions asked. So it looks like that's
okay. Well, this is great. Brandon, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and thanks for everyone for calling in. We've had a really good turnout for this. This is great. We're going to do another webinar next month, and it's topics to be determined. We may still do it on how do I know if I've been hacked, but with everything evolving the way it is, I'm sure that we're going to come up with something that is that's topical before then, and hopefully we'll give you a little bit more heads up than we did this time. And I'm really happy that we had so many people show up with such short notice.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Thanks,
Brandon.
Jordan. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, have a good one.